Break out the Friday vibes, friends. We take one last look at the London matchup for the New York Football Giants and the Green Bay Packers. What to expect when these two teams take the field. Is this potentially a career-defining moment for Daniel Jones if he steps out there underneath center? What the heck is going on with Kadarius Toney? All the injury updates, of course, and plenty more on the betting lines and where to put down that sweet, sweet cash. Coming up next. Yes, friends, it is OGP, the One Giant Podcast. You know the deal, always breaking it down 5 days a week, where I am your host, Adam Armbrecht. You can follow me over on Twitter at Adam Armbrecht. You can find me hosting the Locked On Nets podcast with my boy Doug Norrie. You can find me also starting to cover the NBA at large on the Adam Up podcast, premiering later this week for all of your NBA action as well. I'm far-reaching and ranging in all of my endeavors. But of course, we come to you on a Friday morning. We're going to take a look one last time as we get our coffee. Make sure it's going to be piping hot for us. Shout out to Marty in the chat. Hope you're having a fresh cup of coffee. Marty, I appreciate that you appreciate the shades. I love them too. Tragedy of it all is that I can't see what the heck is going on the computer screen so well because I wear my sunglasses at night or at a minimum indoors. So Andy will be joining with us, obviously, or coming along in a second. We're going to take a look at this game again. Some more, I think, generally positive reports around Daniel Jones going into Thursday's practice. He's back out there again. We had mentioned last episode they didn't bring anybody in all those quarterbacks that they were working out. So at a minimum, it feels like you have to at least set the floor as Daniel Jones is going to be healthy enough to be considered their backup. Maybe I'd say likely, or at least trending in the direction that he's going to go out there. He's going to give it everything he's got, and we'll see where it goes from there. Somebody did bring up that last time Daniel Jones fought his way back into a game after an injury with Joe Judge as the head coach, kind of got a little sideways for him, kind of found himself looking like a QB that was injured. So we're going to talk a little bit more about that aspect of this in a second. But as we welcome in Andy, and as we confirm that he is, in fact, healthy, wealthy, and wise on a Friday, we'll start to dive in on a couple of key questions around some players, including, by the way, something that broke Andy, Landon Collins. We just missed the window on that one. He did officially sign with the Giants yesterday.
He actually didn't make the Giants flight. That's how late in the game he ended up getting signed. Flew in late last night.
He wasn't going to be playing. He wasn't playing this weekend anyway. So.
Yes, it doesn't appear that he would even get into the game. He's likely going to be signed to the practice squad.
Yeah.
However, you never know. There could be circumstances that he may be able to see a snap or two if he gets activated, but highly unlikely. But what was interesting is you saw a bunch of people taking the late flights yesterday, getting into London pretty late. That was the Giants' game plan. Giants fanatic, license plate guy, LPG. Most Giant fans know him. He was in the airport. He ran into Aaron Rodgers grabbing his bag. Then he ran into Landon Collins, who took the late flight as well. You could see everybody's getting there, getting excited about this London match.
Did he any head games with Aaron Rodgers? Did he say, I'm surprised you went with that luggage tandem in this particular instance? Heady stuff.
So Aaron was kind enough to give his friend a little selfie photo or whatever. And when LPG went to go give Aaron a fist bump, he didn't give him a fist bump and kind of walk right by him. Already just slighting Giant fans and Giant Nation. So, let's see if LPG can send that message over to Landon Collins. Hopefully that gets to the team that they're just absolutely being disrespectful to some of our biggest fans who've made the trip over to London.
Yeah, that's high on the minds of everyone in this game. Listen, so Landon Collins obviously gets signed. We're going to push it to the back burner because I don't anticipate him playing. Maybe he does, whatever the case may be. Well, we'll see how it goes. Obviously, we know that he was playing better football towards the back end of his time with the Washington Commanders before being released. Money, certainly a factor there. From all indications, he slimmed down a little bit, so he's playing a little bit leaner potentially whenever he gets on the field for the Giants. Also an indication that Tony Jefferson never quite got there. For the Giants, maybe wasn't going to work out. We also know Julian Love and concussion protocols. That can go beyond this week, right? It's not an automatic that he comes back, although he was participating limited in practice these last couple of days.
You know what I found interesting? And Adam, you and I didn't talk about this offline, but I was thinking last night because obviously the Giants are on
All
my
on the line.
mind 24/7. Yeah, I find it fascinating. They brought in Landon Collins. They've brought in Tony Jefferson. They brought in a lot of safety help, knowing that Dame Belton was out. Julian Love is in concussion protocol. They've had some issues. I'm surprised that Yusuf Corker hasn't gotten a look back from the Giants. It clearly indicates that they saw what they needed to see, and they probably want to just go with a veteran as opposed to someone that has upside. He's still sitting on the Cincinnati Bengals practice squad, if I'm correct. It's just interesting that he was there throughout all of camp, understood all of what Wink Martindale wanted to do, and in a pinch, they're not even thinking about him. They'd rather grab some guy off the street who's never been involved in anything with Wink.
Yeah, but any of these veterans, whether it's Tony Jefferson, whether or not it works out, right? You look at him and you know how he profiles, has a relationship with Wink Martindale. If it's Landon Collins, leave the relationship with the Giants aside. It's still, you know what the player profiles as. Yusuf Corker, who we were excited about when they signed him after the draft, it's an unknown commodity as far as what he's going to be at the NFL level. But to your point, him or anybody not bringing someone back into the fold that maybe was a part of training camp at any position, I think is just further evidence of maybe how they felt about him and what the sample size was. And you had made the really good connection about him being closer to home, goes with Cincinnati. That may have been kind of a done deal, right? Like that could have been a conversation that was happening behind closed doors for the Giants and Corker of saying, it's been fun. If I'm going to be on a practice squad, I might as well be closer to home. That being the case, though, the other thing I want to deal with here, I'm interested to see how you sent me some things covering Kadarius Toney, Jordan Renan reporting that this marks the third hamstring injury, separate parts of the hamstring injuries that Kadarius Toney has had this season. Toney had a bit of a social media comment just about basically, hey, if you know me, you know what I'm about. I want to be out there. That's it, right? Leaving it at that. Just where do you stand on Kadarius Toney right now, knowing that he's not playing in this game?
So I was thinking about this too. I sent you a bunch of stuff because the Giants
did a lot of thinking this morning.
I
is that
did.
Why you're late?
I did. Yeah, there you go, Adam. I'm just getting prepared. Unlike you, I'm prepared for the show. 7:45 a.m. press conference over in London this morning.
Came out of the womb prepared.
Oh, there you go. Well, but so Brian Daboll came out and said, yes, this is a different injury. He tweaked his other healthy hamstring on Thursday morning. It sounds like some people are saying Wednesday, sometime in between Wednesday practice and Thursday. And this is literally his third hamstring injury since preseason. And it's happened on each of his different hamstrings. And the thing that I'm thinking about right now is everyone is piling on Kadarius Toney. I know that you've talked before about hamstring injuries being more preparation and stretching and understanding than anything else. Mm-hmm. But at this point, Adam, like, what is there left to say? Because for me, it's very simple and easy to just be like, Kadarius doesn't care, or this is good. This is a problem. He's injury prone. It's like, okay, what gets us into a better spot? My thought process on this is I will not be thinking about Kadarius Toney until I see him back out on the field. And until I see him back on the field, everything else is white noise to me. Whether he's injured, he posts to social media, he does anything else, because I still believe that he can contribute at some point on this team.
So then just a brief pause here, because I'm generally in agreement. I don't care. And I always stop short of being judgmental about somebody. You may have something could come out. Who knows what could be going on with him, right? Maybe hamstring is just a code word for something else and covering up for another issue that is happening, right? I'm not going to be that aggressive around it, short of saying that he obviously does seem to be in this moment injury prone as a wide receiver at the NFL level. But in terms of things being white noise, I didn't send you the tweets from Kadarius Toney or the coverage of his injury and what was going on. You sent those to me. So
I did.
How white is that noise that you seem to not be able to
I see it and I say, what would really grind Adam's gears?
Nice try, buddy. It's Friday, baby. You can't grind these gears.
No,
these gears are well lubricated.
Listen, you are frustrated because you do feel that it is preparation on Kadarius Tony's part.
No, but I'm fine. But this element, it's just to your point, because I want to get into more stuff. I don't care. Like at this point, I don't care. I'm not like, oh, another hamstring. I agree with you. He's injured. Until you start hearing that he's coming closer to playing, it's not really my concern, short of saying, okay, he's got injury problems. How are we feeling about the other injuries for this roster? Other players that Wan'Dale Robinson, we're talking 50-50, which I always think is a good percentage for him to maybe get back out on the field on Sunday. Obviously cautious with the rookie wide receiver. It seemed like they were saying that last week he was maybe close to being able to play, and it was an abundance of caution. Now, this week, though, they're talking 50-50, and I'm like, well, that doesn't sound like you were just being precautious a week ago.
There's a couple changing of the tunes and tones by a lot of the beat writers and reporters about different things.
You know what? I don't think that they always know what they're talking about, if I'm being frank.
Well, interesting. Sometimes they read the wrong tea leaves, and they think that they know something that maybe they don't. But Jordan Renan and Art Stapleton were going back and forth on a couple different players and where they thought they were at. Art felt confident after talking to Wan'Dale, and then it seemed like something changed, and everyone.
Well, you can't listen to the wide receiver. You can't listen to the player about it. Everybody, feeling bullish. You know what I mean? Like,
I know. But when someone that follows the team says we are encouraged by what's happened, we are optimistic about things, you kind of read the tea leaves and you say, well, I think he's going to be out there. It sounds like really Wan'Dale Robinson is a coin flip. May be I was expecting him to be out there. He may be a week away. Like they're saying, it may be too.
This is classic pregame warmups,
Yeah, like we'll just do it right up until warmups. It's like, really, what are you going to see in warmups that you haven't seen for the last 3 weeks? That's going to change things. So I would expect him not to be out there. On the positive side, it sounds like Leonard Williams will be out there, and he is such a huge factor in this game. We talked ad nauseum about stopping the run, the two-headed monster of Aaron Jones and A.J. Dillon. They're top 10 in the league in rushing and rushing attempts. Having Leonard Williams on our defensive line is everything to being able to stop the run for this team. We saw the Bears be able to run the ball with effectiveness against us without Leonard Williams. You see his impact is almost 2 yards per attempt, I think. It's insane how much he really helps us out. And if we have any chance of keeping this close and winning against the Packers, Leonard Williams being out there is a huge, huge bonus for the Giants.
I certainly agree with you. You want to get him in there with Dexter Lawrence. You want to feel like you can congest that thing. We know there's going to be a really big tandem there with Aaron Jones and obviously A.J. Dillon. Interesting note here. Sorry, because I looked this up. I got a couple things going for me here. I saw Saquon Barkley commenting about how the offensive line has been great. This is apropos of nothing. It's just kind of noodling in my brain. I find it fascinating that one element of a offense, one player on a team can be like, these guys are out there crushing it. Meanwhile, if you were to ask maybe Daniel Jones or the offensive coordinator, right, or you say, how's the offensive line? You'd be like, we have our good days, we have our bad. Through the prism of what you're trying to accomplish, you can kind of get a sense of where people are on this offensive line right now.
It makes me think about you. You obviously host the Locked On Nets podcast as well. Right. It makes me think like the team loses, but like one guy hits 7 of 8 threes, and he's like, we were kind of in the zone there. We were feeling it for a while, and it's like, no, that like in totality, maybe you didn't catch everything. But to Saquon's point, the run blocking has been good. They have been good. Evan Neal has looked far better in run blocking than he is in pass protection. And Saquon Barkley, outside of the Wildcat where he had to hand it off, doesn't have to sit behind that offensive line when, like Daniel Jones does when they're about to pass the ball. But it is something to noodle on that, like his perspective is so drastically different than the entirety of the offense. But whatever is helping him be successful, if he thinks that they're doing what he needs them to do and they feel like Saquon is appreciative and it helps them come together better as a team, by all means, like keep that run game going by any means necessary.
Well, and remember too, like it's all relative as well. Like in years past under different coaching staffs, the offensive line has kind of been similar, better in run protection than pass protection, right? Struggles to give opportunities, etc. And yet this coaching staff, in spite of the lack of productivity in the passing game, is finding a way to still make it so that Saquon can be successful. He's 100% healthy. You're using the strength of your offensive line. So that changes the perspective of obviously not only for the player, but also for the line in front of him and then also the team overall. we're going to bounce around here just a little bit because I was picking up nuggets all over town. I find it really fun here. You're probably not going to be shocked on the Giants side of things, but where do you think the highest total yardage receiver on either team ranks in the NFL coming into this game?
Ooh, receiver. Yeah, that's interesting. Where they rank in totality, I'm just going to throw out a guess. The highest ranked wide receiver per yardage, you're saying pure yardage?
Pure yardage.
I'm going to say is 71st in the league.
You know what? So there you go. Aim low and be pleasantly surprised. 55th is Romeo Doubs for the Green Bay Packers. Obviously, Alan Lazard wasn't fully healthy at the beginning of the season. He's quickly trying to catch up behind him there. But just, we'll talk about setting the table here. That's where we're standing right now.
Between both teams, there's no number one, and Romeo Doubs would be like maybe a number two in terms of like just overall efficiency in the wide receiver game. So that is a fascinating one. Both teams have struggled to manufacture yards through the air with their wide receiving core.
Oh, 100%. And then don't forget though too, what do you think about Alan Lazard? Because I've talked with Peter Bukowski, who covers the team. I talked with people in the off season, when they were letting Davante Adams go and they weren't going to bring him back and everything that was going on there. What do you view him as? Because by a lot of people's standards, he is a number one wide receiver, and that's a big proponent of how this Packers offense is going to start to get back on track in the wide receiver room by getting him into the fold with some veterans like Cobb, with these rookies, and saying, yes, this is how you start to see more balance out there.
So he's been with the Packers since 2018. He only had one reception in 2018, so we'll throw that out the window, Adam.
Rookies don't get the ball.
But yeah, career high in yardage was 2021 with 513 yards. Now, he did have 8 touchdowns, so Aaron Rodgers did look for him in the red zone. He is a big body wide receiver, but I think it's all relative. Like, he's the number one wide receiver on the Packers because they don't have anybody else. He's clearly on most other teams a number 2 wide receiver, maybe number 3. And he's been in the league for 5 years. He's 26 years old. Like, maybe now he could come into his own. But for me, he's just not a guy that you can put out there on one-on-one coverage against a guy like Adoree Jackson and expect him to have success consistently. Whereas Davante Adams can sit there and he's matchup bulletproof. Like, it doesn't matter who he's going up against.
Yeah, I mean, we're not comparing him to Davante Adams and Nuke, etc. I understand he's replacing him in effect, but when you say, I mean, I'll push back, and I'm saying this because in terms of what to expect here on Sunday, remember, as you said, 500 yards, 450, 513. He's come back now in just 3 games played this season. He's caught 12 passes on 17 targets for 174 yards, right? So I'm laying out the seeds here that, let's assume, although he has had his injury issues, if he's going to play through the rest of the season right now, he's coming in missing just 1 game, but across 3, right? You're talking about a guy that is almost averaging let's just say 200 yards through 4 games, right? If he just had a little crap performance to start the season. This is a guy that is going to be pushing towards 1,000 yards potentially by the end of the year, now given the opportunity. And I agree with you. Is he an elite number 1 guy? To this point, you can't say that you haven't seen it. Maybe he's capable. He has some good measurables. He's 26 years old. You could argue this is him now coming into the prime of his wide receiver career. But I'll be interested to see here how it impacts what rookie Romeo Doubs is doing out there, what Randall Cobb is doing out there, what Christian Watson is doing out there, who's had his struggles early here. But the more talent that you add into a room is the more difficulty it presents for a secondary. And even most importantly, is just maybe the more that it keeps the Giants away from the line of scrimmage and that running attack for the Packers.
I'm curious to see if Alan Lazard ascends, because if you start putting those stats over an entire season, you're talking about 1,000 yards. Just keep in mind, this could go one of 2 ways. It could go that way where he becomes the de facto number 1 and looks great and is able to beat one-on-one matchups. Or just remember, on our own team in 2019, rookie year, Darius Slayton had 740 yards and 8 touchdowns. And he was inactive for the first couple of games of this season. Yep. So it can go one of 2 ways. Like, either the guy can ascend and build on what he's had, or he is just a complementary piece that gets you 500, 600 yards with a couple of touchdowns in a pinch.
Sure, and the interest, so it's also what it opens up here. But like again, this is why I'm going to go back. He caught this past week against the Patriots 6 balls for 116. Right, Romeo Doubs gets a touchdown on 5 for 47. Randall Cobb 3 for 42. So it's like when we're looking at this, that breakdown of targets, it was 8 for Lazard, it was 8 for Doubs. So he came on immediately here. So the 170 whatever that he has on the season, primarily he did that work here in week number 4 against the Patriots, understanding early in the season, week 1 and into week 2 is him building back up. Even if pick your poison, quote unquote, it's not the most poisonous snake in the country. But if Lazard is out there and you have the rookie out there, what are you going to have Adoree Jackson do, right? What assignment is he picking up? Adoree Jackson, it has been very good for the Giants so far this season. He's also not the biggest cornerback in the world. So that height matchup for Lazard is going to present problems for whoever's going up against him.
Yeah, you almost wish Rodarius Williams was back for this game. Not saying that he would be able to neutralize someone like Allen Lazard, considering he hasn't played all season. And
right, but I'll just take any measurable that makes sense in a matchup.
Right, a little bit larger wingspan, a little bit taller, can match up a little bit better with Lazard. It would be nice to have someone out there that you could swap over in a pinch. We don't really have that much height across our cornerback room, given that we have Darnay Holmes. Given that we have Adoree Jackson, they're not menacing in terms of their size and stature. Could create problems where Aaron Rodgers likes to throw up some of those 50-50 balls, or projections or whatever balls that are thrown up there, and when he's got 6 inches on the cornerback, it makes it much easier for Lazard to come down with those.
Yeah, and then by the way, I mean, like, I don't want to even gloss over this to say nothing of the tight end room for the Green Bay Packers. I just all of these things are kind of swirling around this game here. The way that I looked at this one coming into it, though, and I said this at the top, Andy, is when I'm thinking about this game, and now Daniel Jones goes out there, his ankle's all wrapped up, but he goes out to practice again. It seems like the sentiment is he's going to go out there and give it a go on Sunday. Does this feel like this is the question that came to mind. Could this potentially be a career-defining game for Daniel Jones? He goes out there in a matchup that the Giants are dogs in. He's a little bit dinged up. You don't have all the weapons in the world that you'd like to see out there for him. And yet, if you can go out and gut out a performance, and I don't know if it matters win or lose per se, but if you can go out there and put out a game that says, man, here's a kid that shows a couple of the throws, that has to stay in the pocket a little bit more because his reduced mobility, I could see this being somewhat a referendum on whether or not we keep moving forward through the season, the long season ahead, continue to see how he develops and gets healthy, or maybe being that signal. And by the way, a part of it is just saying because he is injured, and that is something that has followed him around now 4 years of a career in the NFL. He always has an injury that does plague him a little bit.
That's a really good question. I tend to think of it a little bit differently, and that's maybe because I'm a glass half full guy when it comes to Daniel
I'm not saying
Jones.
it negatively. I'm saying it positively.
Agreed. I don't think that there's anything that can happen to Daniel Jones in this game that would write him off, or you would put the referendum on the season, because like he's trying to do this on a bum ankle with an offensive line that's had trouble blocking, with no wide receivers out there, against the MVP of the league last year. So like when you think of it in that context.
Okay, so just double check here one last time, because last episode you said that Aaron Rodgers not the same player, not as good a player, but now you're referencing as the MVP. Just to be
well, so let me finish my statement, and then you'll understand where I am on this. So the idea that Aaron Rodgers is washed, to your point, is he's a top 12 quarterback in the league.
Right, still middle of the road guy. Yeah.
No matter how you slice it, he's still a top 12 guy in the league. My thought about this is if Daniel Jones does this in this circumstance, in this situation, against another 3-1 team that's expected to make a playoff run, like that could be the defining moment that vaults him forward. Like if he grits it out and he's able to gain yards, and the team looks at him like hobbled on one ankle and he's diving for first downs, and he manufactures a way to win this game, Like, this could be that career defining moment where he's lauded by the team and praised by the team. So for me, I don't really
But you're
see.
saying can only if it can go positively, but you're really not going to have it take any negatives.
Yeah, I don't. There's not a single negative takeaway that I can have from this game. If Daniel Jones looks hobbled out there and he's getting, sacked a million times, I really don't think that in my mind, like, there's any indication. And I know that's a very easy, biased way for me to look at it. Like, throw it all out. Unless Daniel Jones wins, then it's amazing. But the way that I think about it is also like this: if you were to swap the quarterbacks in this game and put Aaron Rodgers on the Giants and Daniel Jones on the Packers, who would you expect to win this game?
Aaron Rodgers. It's just that. Yeah.
It's not even a question to you. You're
No,
saying
no, because you can tell me that the two-headed monster of Aaron Jones and AJ Dillon is very talented and successful, and obviously those weapons. You would argue the wide receiver core at this moment is stronger over on the Green Bay Packers side, and it's like you're trying to bait this question where you're downplaying everything that's on the Green Bay Packers, but now by comparison, you're going to say it's still much better than what the Giants have. Aaron Rodgers is a better quarterback. There's not a discussion to be had there. He is worth far more on any team in the league than Daniel Jones would ever be. And if I look at these rosters and what's going on, can I look at this season in this moment and say, Aaron Rodgers' mobility, is there enough there for him to be able to move around? Sure, maybe, but I have not seen anything, at least in this moment and in this season, if that's what we're going by, that tells me that Daniel Jones can connect with any of these wide receivers that he has on the Green Bay Packers if you swap them. So, and I'm not even knocking Daniel Jones, but if you're going to pose that question, the answer is always going to be Aaron Rodgers. There's no world, any reasonable person picking Daniel Jones over Aaron Rodgers is you're just, I'm gonna say being a homer, and I don't mean it disingenuously, but like that's.
Well, the reason why I'm posing the question, I honestly don't know how I would feel about that question. Just thinking, like, Aaron Rodgers has no one to throw to if he's on the Giants against an offensive line that is giving up sacks. Like, it's just an interesting thought experiment to say, like,
right, but
can
okay.
Aaron Rodgers overcome that?
Okay,
sure, he can, because that's what makes him great, and that's what makes him an MVP.
Right, but Lazard has been back for essentially one game here. We just read off the stat lines from week number 4. So prior to that, Aaron Rodgers has been going out there with a good running game and Randall Cobb and a rookie wide receiver in Romeo Doubs. So it's very apples to apples here in this scenario about where the quality is and where it has not been. I don't think I get. It's not an unreasonable question to pose, but my only concern here is also as well. I don't know. I don't think it can't be an only positive, no negative scenario. There are ways where if Daniel Jones goes out there and just gets hurt again and worse, that can be a negative referendum on his career because he's a guy that has trouble staying healthy. It's going to be hard if he stays in the pocket and he has time to maybe fully say, well, if that ball's a little bit underthrown, am I gonna say that's on Jones or the ankle? He couldn't quite get it out there. So I think there are some built-in excuses in a reasonable way for this. I will say too, if he goes out there, and I mentioned this early, go back to when he played against the Cardinals, who was clearly injured. What were we doing? We had this blowout loss. It's a disaster. If Daniel Jones looks like that in this game, it can be also a referendum and negative mark on Brian Daboll and this coaching staff.
I agree with
allow
that.
Daniel Jones to go out there and say, listen, I get it. Everyone, you want your gutty player, you want your best chance to win, but you know where he's at physically from a practice standpoint coming to this game. So if he looks like a lame duck, that's on the coaching staff.
You're 100% right. That's kind of my point, is like, if he's just trying to grit it out and you could see that he's
who's
just
saving him from himself.
Right. Like, that's what football players do. They just want to be out there to help their team. They don't want to be the guy that takes himself out of the game. So that's kind of why I'm saying it's not necessarily on Daniel Jones. If he looks like he's hobbled and he's not helping the team contribute, then Kafka and Daboll need to pull him out of the game and get Davis Webb in there, or Tyrod Taylor if he clears concussion protocol, because Daniel Jones is going to take himself out. Like, he wants to support his teammates and win. So that's where my head goes at more. You're right on the money. We cannot have another Arizona Cardinals game where it's the second quarter and you're like, this guy can't be out here. He's getting killed and no one's helping him. Like, he's clearly not right. And if we see that, it's not on Jones to take himself out. It's on the coaching staff to make the right decision for him.
No, obviously. And I also, but I'll just reiterate this again too. Like, if he goes out there and in the first series doesn't look right, it's already a problem. Like it can't,
I
you
agree.
cannot start at all. It's not, let's see what it looks
We
like
don't
to
have
start.
the luxury against Aaron Rodgers and the Packers to get down 14 points and be like, okay, now Davis Webb come in and win us the game, right?
Yeah, and because and again, not to even put, we're not going to sit here and laud Davis Webb, but whatever he's capable of, at least hey, he's 100% healthy. You can manage the game script, and you don't have the unknown variable of, we want to do a little bit of a rollout with Davis Webb. It's not going to be as sexy as with Daniel Jones. But what if Daniel Jones' ankle gives out on him and he, slips down, fumbles the ball, loses 10 yards, right? Those type of negative plays in a game like this is what you cannot afford to have.
I couldn't agree more. All right. So now turning the page on that, we understand where we want to go with Daniel Jones.
Yeah.
Let's get into bets, predictions. Where do you want to start? Do you want to go over under on game? Do you want my bet of the week? Adam, tell me where you want to go on the betting corner.
As we enter into Andy's bet of the week. Go ahead. Yeah. Give me your play here. What is it? Sometimes you've gone the straight up, you've like the over under, whatever it may be, or you've gone a little bit prop oriented. Where is Andy feeling the money should lie tonight?
Yeah. So this one, is a difficult one because not many lines in terms of player props are out for the Giants right now because we don't know who's going to be out there. Is Daniel Jones going to be out there? Is Wan'Dale Robinson going to be able to play? Like we really aren't sure what the complement of players is. And each one of those decisions is like it impacts everyone else on the field. I will say, small caveat, once we find out what the roster is, I would advise everyone to look at what Daniel Bellinger's numbers are, because I do think he's going to be active in the passing game during this game. However, on what we have right now, I think the best play is taking the New York Giants first half getting 4.5 points, Adam, because historically what we've seen in London games, the under generally hits. We know that it's an early game. Everyone's kind of thrown off early on in the game. It feels like people are kind of slogging through the game. It feels like it's going to be one of those 10-7, 10-6 kind of early. Everyone's feeling themselves out. And either one of those, whether the Giants get a touchdown or kick 2 field goals, it feels like the Giants are going to be within that 4.5. And to me, that's kind of where I think the Giants are going to try to establish the run game. Everyone's going to feel themselves out. Low scoring. Give me the 4.5 points.
Here is the beauty of what we essentially is our sponsor for the back end of our segment on Fridays over on betstamp.com, Andy. Now, would you want 5.5 in that first half over on PointsBet minus 105 for the Giants? If you want to trend into the positive money, you can go with FanDuel plus 100 at 4.5. Or you could even go a little bit of a gamble here. So there's no really reason to do it because ProLine is giving you 3.5, but it's the same thing as FanDuel right now. So if you like the 4.5, you can actually get plus money on FanDuel, 4.5 plus 100.
I love it right now. I mean, the 5.5 sounds even better, even at a smaller VIG.
Right,
for anyone. No, it's just a little juicy. May as well take the extra point. Who knows what's going to happen? But that's my favorite bet. I just think it's going to be low scoring. Teams are going to feel each other out. Giants are going to try to establish the run, work the clock a little bit. I mean, don't you love that? Isn't that one like a can't miss one right now, Adam?
It can't.
I'm pitting you into the corner.
Yeah, like
it can't. Surely that has to be good, right?
Yeah, surely it can't be wrong. I'll say no because there's a world where the Giants kick 2 field goals, the Packers get 2 touchdowns, and it's 14-6. And that's done and over with there in the first half. I think, though, when you look at some of the score lines for the Packers as well and the way that they've had some issues moving the ball and even just the timing of it, right? How long are these drives going to take? Even if both teams are having success, and we've been talking about through the running game, just by default, we may only get a couple of possessions per quarter. So maybe that ends up playing into the favor there. I don't hate it, by the way. I think that's like a reasonable one to take a stab at. I was trying to get a sense here so just overall, by the way, if you're looking to play the game, the Giants are getting 8 points. You can get down to 7.5 and a little bit juicier on the money. You can't get any better than, if you want to go minus 120, again, ProLine will give you 9.5 right now for the New York Football Giants. If you want to go money line for the New York Football Giants, 304 is your best bet. That's coming across from best odds. And that's going to be Bet Rivers. You can do that on. So 304, 290. It's all basically relative there. If you were over under, man, 40.5. Let's just talk about that for a second. Over under 40.5. You just laid out a scenario where it's 10-7 at halftime. So we're at 17 points. We just need to clear another 24 in the second half to hit that over. Do you see any world where this thing picks up some energy in the second half, or that it's just a drag through fest all the way?
I struggle with seeing how we're going to be able to move the ball consistently. Now, obviously, we have Saquon Barkley. I think that's going to be long, methodical drives of him trying to get some chunk yardage for us. I just don't know if the Giants, like, nothing so far this season screams the Giants are an explosive offense that can get into a shootout with the Packers and win the game. So for me, it's more, can Wink Martindale's defense bend and not break? Keep in mind, the Packers have the worst 2-goal percentage of any team in the NFL right now. The Giants are really good in the red zone. They're number 1 in the red zone. That is a key stat that people need to think about. Is the Giants are great when their backs are against the wall. The Packers are 0-3 or 1-3 when it comes to being to goal to go. I just see this being field goals, touchdowns at a premium. Field goals get you into space. Oh, by the way, people in London love watching field goal kicks. Like, they get more excited when the kicker runs out there than they do watching it like a deep touchdown pass. Like last week, the Will Lutz 61-yarder, like, they were going berserk over it. I expect to see a bunch of different field goals. As I said, touchdowns at a premium. It's going to be a tough one.
So you love the Graham Gano over 1.5 field goals in this one. You can get anywhere. Best line there is going to be over on I don't know. We like to spread this money around here. Go to Borgata, you get it at plus 140. MGM, wow. Same line there. So 2 field goals for Graham Gano, and you're covered there. I'll throw out a couple of ones here. I was taking a look, just if you want to take a bit of a dart throw here, you can go get Darius Slayton to score a touchdown, which is a big ask here. A lot of the lines aren't out here yet. The only thing you can get involved with Darius Slayton right now is getting a touchdown. But man, think about this, dude. Bet 365 is plus 400, or you go over to Borgata for 750. So you figure you figure out
your money.
Yeah, you figure out the range that they want to put out there. I think it's a nice dart throw on one of these deep passes. I don't mind going over to the Green Bay Packers side of things and taking a look at rushing plus receiving for AJ Dillon. That's set at 72.5. I'll take that at a minus, right? Like, that seems like a really easy one to do as well. If you want that Daniel Bellinger, like you talked about, Andy, it's plus 500 on scoring a touchdown in this game as well. And then last but not least, I just want to put this out there because I'm looking for somebody like a Christian Watson over on the Green Bay Packers. I don't want to get too bullish on his touchdown line, but either him or even an Allen Lazard. Let's talk Allen Lazard, actually, because we built him up a little bit here. 3.5 is his over-under for receptions. I don't hate that number there. And I also don't hate his receiving yards, which is only set at 45.5. I mean, there may not be a lot of movement in this game in the wide receiver room, but we saw this last week, right? Couple of big plays over the middle, couple of nice chunks, and all of a sudden it pads out a stat line that makes it look a little bit funky on the back end. Doesn't mean you can't win some money. Andy, who's winning this ball game in foggy London town? We can do it both ways, obviously. Who do you think's going to win? And then we'll know if you want to take those points. 8 + 8 for the New York Football Giants here.
Yeah, so this is a tough one for me. It just feels like if the Giants get behind, it's going to be so hard for them to come back. If you don't have Daniel Jones fully functional, if Wan'Dale Robinson's iffy at best, you don't have Kadarius Toney, you don't it just feels like this team is not built to play from behind. There's only one winning formula, it feels like to me, and that is to get a lead early, lean on Saquon Barkley for another 30 carries, milk the clock, and hope that Wink Martindale's defense can shut them down. Like, if you're a Giants fan, that is the roadmap to winning this game. I talked about it being 10-6 or 10-7 at halftime. Probably getting that 4.5 is nice. I just think if the Packers can get up early, they can really lean on AJ Dillon and Aaron Jones. And with the threat of Aaron Rodgers doing play action, it feels like such a huge mountain to climb for the Giants. Right now, I've got the Packers winning 23-13 against the Giants. I think it's a couple field goals, a Saquon Barkley explosive run, and that's really where our offense is going to be. It's tough to think otherwise, considering we haven't really scored more than 20-ish points in a game so far.
Yeah, this is not an easy matchup for the Giants, even if they were 100% healthy. Even if you had everybody in the wide receiver room, Daniel Jones, offensive line was just playing better. If everything was perfect for the Giants, this would still be a tough matchup. One thing I'm going to throw out there, though, as we get into my prediction here, plus 420 over on FanDuel for Daniel Jones to have at least a touchdown, one touchdown, and Daniel Jones can make you some cash there. I'm going to put that bet in. Why am I going to put that bet in? Why did I ask if this could be a career-defining game for Daniel Jones? I think that this is going to be a career-defining game for Daniel Jones. I think legitimately, I'm not talking about him going out there and throwing for 350 yards, right, and lighting the world on fire with this cast of characters. But I think maybe the way a lot of people talked about him after that Dallas loss, right? Okay, they lost the game. He was the 9th issue that you would have pointed to, and he did all the things, gutted it out, etc. There's a world where Davis Webb's a part of this process too, by the way. I think that the New York Giants are going to win this game because I don't think that the Green Bay Packers are fully right yet. By the end of the year, I expect the Packers to be a double-digit win team. I expect them to be going to the playoffs and see what happens from there. But in this moment right now, the New York Giants still seem to be fueled by that sense of Brian Daboll, Wink Martindale, Mike Kafka, this coaching staff. We believe that we can go out and compete with anybody in the league. It's going to require Saquon Barkley to have a Herculean lift. And I think it's going to involve a few more wrinkles offensively than we've seen, whether it's personnel-wise or how they choose to execute it, knowing that Daniel Jones may not be as mobile. Shout out to Marty, who said bring up Khalil Pimpleton. You're gosh darn right, Marty. He could be a game changer for us too. The only way that you get there, though, is by this being a bit of a slugfest, a drag-out battle. I'm going to rely a bit on Graham Gano in this one. I'm going to put it awkwardly at 19-16 New York Football Giants. They bring home the victory from London. They end up having to maybe lick their wounds pretty heavily against Baltimore. But I think this is one of those kind of pivotal moments for Daniel Jones, for the Giants, for this coaching staff, for this rebuilding process. I think they chalk up one more here before maybe the road gets difficult.
Man, how exciting would that be? Well, we would have the national media saying we're the worst 4-1 team ever. They'll basically say, what's wrong with the Green Bay Packers? And you, my friend, Adam, you will be able to rock those shades, and you will be the prognosticator of prognosticators if the Giants can pull it out. I'm getting excited at the thought of Daniel Jones taking down, Aaron Rodgers, because what will they say then?
Hey, baby. They'll say worst 4-1 team in the world. Guess what? We don't give any of them back. That's right. It's going to be a fun one, man. Andy and I will be in the same I was going to say vicinity. We'll actually be in the same room. So we'll be with each other. I don't know why that got weird. We're going to be hanging out together watching this game on Sunday morning. Hopefully it's going to be nothing but just a celebration for more than one reason, football and personally for the Makowitz household. You go ahead and get over to YouTube where everyone's in on the comments. We really appreciate everyone being in on the interactions. I believe Marty shouted it out. I want to make sure I get this right for you, Marty. What'd you go with? 23-20. The shades are on, Andy. I can't tell who he picked, though. Was it the Giants or the Packers? Did we win?
He took the Giants. It feels like you and Marty are lockstep on this. I really hope that I am wrong, and I really hope that Daniel Jones has the game that you think he might.
You better believe it. Enjoy us over on YouTube. Get the podcast wherever you get those needs fulfilled. And as we head off to foggy London town, as Andy Makowitz would want, need, and nay, demand the people know.
As always, let's go Big Blue, mate.